Good morning. I'm going to play an Italian composition by Ennio Morricone, who wrote a lot of songs for movies and recently passed away, so I hope you're gonna like this.
Welcome everyone to today's service. My name is John Bell. I'll be your platform assistant today. You've heard our musician for the day, Irene Jalenti, and today's speaker will be our own Caywood Black, licensed Unity teacher. Caywood's going to talk to us today about self-care. Now, if you'll join me in a centering prayer. This one is along the lines of self-care, which Caywood will be talking about. This is adapted from some advice from a Buddhist monk named Haemin Sunim. As we gather here on this beautiful September morning, just days away from the beginning of autumn, we note that the sun is a little less intense than it was in June. Darkness falls a little bit sooner than it did in August. It's the time of harvest, of bringing in abundance that summer provided, celebrating our gifts. Though the cold winds of winter are still in the future, it's time to plan for that season of rest and contemplation. How will you care for yourself in the coming months? Here are some ways, 5 ways, that we can care for our physical, mental, and spiritual health. 1, breathe. Take a deep breath. Be aware of your breath. Enjoy the sensation of taking in the sweet, fresh air. Take a few minutes every day to focus on your breathing. 2, accept. The path to self-care starts with acceptance, especially of our own struggles. Better than trying to change or control our emotions, allow them to be there. Trust them, treat them as guests, and your mind will settle. 3, write. Write down the situation that is challenging you. Write down what you're feeling. Write or type what weighs on your heart and what you need to do about it. Don't carry the burden in your mind. Put it down on paper or in pixels. Make it into a list, and then start by doing the easiest thing on that list. 4, talk. Make time each week to talk with a close, non-judgmental friend. Choose one who will listen to you, who will make no objections. You already know the answer to your problem. Let your friend be the mirror, the river that receives the stone. Release your story to your friend and you will be able to see it yourself more objectively. 5, walk. Just walking can distract your mind and create space between you and whatever is causing stress. Sitting around stewing like a pot roast in the oven will not help you. Stand up, open the door, and start walking. Pay attention to nature. See the grass, the trees, the stones, the sky. Hear the traffic around you, the flowing water, the birds, the sounds of leaves in the trees. Let the negative energy flow down from your head to your feet and release it through your feet as you walk. We are imperfect, but striving for perfection, striving to remember every moment that all is good and all is God. Imperfection can also be beautiful. It also has great meaning. Accept imperfection, make it your guest, and treat it with love. Wrap your arms around your own heart and hold yourself close, lovingly. You are beautiful. You are wise. You are perfect. And you are loved. Let us spend a few moments now in silence, appreciating our own vitality and whispering into our own ears how much we appreciate ourselves. Amen.
I'm going to do a song from Brazil because it got a little cold recently, so maybe this is going to bring us a little warmth. Solidão é a lava que cobre tudo, amargura em minha boca, sorriso e os dentes de chumbo. Solidão, palavra cavada no coração, resignado o mundo no compasso da desilusão, viu? Desilusão. Desilusão, danço eu, dança você, na dança da solidão, viu? Desilusão, desilusão, danço eu, dança você, na dança da solidão. Camélia ficou viúva, Joana se apaixonou, Maria tentou a morte por causa do seu amor. Meu pai sempre me dizia: meu filho, tome cuidado. Quando eu penso no futuro, não esqueço o meu passado. Desilusão, desilusão, danço eu, dança você, na dança da solidão, viu? Desilusão, desilusão, danço eu, dança você, na dança da solidão. Quando vem a madrugada, o meu pensamento vagueira, corro os dedos na viola, contemplando a lua cheia. Apesar de tudo existe uma fonte de água pura. Quem beber daquela água não mais ama a amargura. Oi, desilusão, desilusão, danço eu, dança você, na dança da solidão, viu? Desilusão, desilusão, danço dança você na dança da solidão. Danço eu 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 na dança da solidão.
Thank you, Irene, for that lively selection. I always look forward to your music.
Thank you.
And thank you, John, for that prayer, which introduced several topics that we'll be meeting again. Yes. So it's good to be talking with you this morning. I haven't spoken for the last 2 months because I was taking 2 Unity classes simultaneously that ran for 8 weeks. One was on self-awareness, taught by a psychologist who was in private practice as a therapist before she became a Unity minister. And the other was taught by a woman with her doctorate in counseling who works at the college level and does corporate training. And that class was in self-care. Evidently, these classes did not exist back 7 years ago when I completed my LUT, and Unity has added them since then, I guess because they're concerned that ministers and spiritual leaders may be subject to burnout. Who knew? Yes. These classes introduce some growth areas for me. We talk about Unity Center DC is a spiritual growth community, and that Unity is a practical school of Christianity. So I would ask, how are we growing spiritually in practical ways? So some of the ideas that I'll be introducing today came from some of our textbooks, which I will introduce briefly. In the Flow of Life by Eric Butterworth, Unity Classic. Conscious Living by Guy Hendricks, a therapist. I like this book a lot. 2 books I did on my pad, which I had never done before, Pocket Peace by a New York therapist, and Inner Peace for Busy People by a corporate trainer. A recommended book, Trust Your Life, a Unity book. I like this one. And Energy Sparks, a booklet by one of the teachers. Okay, so first let's dispense with the notion that self-care is selfishness. Self-care is not selfishness. We can't give to others what we don't have. We can't give self-care or care to others if we can't even give it to ourselves. We take care of ourselves in part so we can learn how to care for others, as well as to better complete our mission, whatever is ours to do. Self-care is also part of stewardship, taking care of what we have been giving. Self-care is a big part of being healthy and staying healthy. So these classes introduced 7 dimensions of wellness, and I share them with you for your consideration if you might like to incorporate some of them into your own practice. Spiritual wellness, intellectual wellness, emotional wellness, physical wellness, social wellness, environmental wellness, and career or occupational wellness. We'll begin with physical wellness. It's pretty straightforward. I think most of us know the basics: good nutrition, regular exercise, and plenty of sleep. For me, in thinking about ways that I could increase my self-care, what I came up with was giving extra care to my hands and feet. They are a primary interface for my interaction with the physical world, and it was a simple step that worked for me. Sometimes simple incremental steps are the easiest way to start, as John mentioned in his prayer. Career or occupational wellness. Well, since I retired a year ago after 40 years of teaching and coaching, I wasn't sure how this one applied to me, unless we count helping out with UCDC as a new preoccupation and obsession. I think whether we have a job or not, we can always follow the path of Dharma, which is a path of righteousness that supports the health of others and the world. And this can be part of our job, or it can be part of our everyday lifestyle. Social wellness is all about establishing and maintaining healthy relationships, which is especially important in a time of social isolation. Distance in space and distance in time can dissolve relationships. It takes time and effort to maintain them. This was a growth area for me because I'm an introvert. And I discovered that for me, the key is initiating contact. And by interacting with others, we can offer and share understanding, care, support, and validation. So, a real life example. I had a really good friend who moved to Seattle maybe 10 or 12 years ago. We used to play adult league softball together. But over the years, we sort of lost track of each other. So I thought, I'm going to initiate contact. I saw on my calendar that it was his birthday. So in an old address book, I looked up an old phone number, wondering if it still worked. And I called him, and I got his answering machine, and I recognized his voice right away. So I left him a message wishing him happy birthday. Then later, I was looking at my calendar, and I realized I had gotten the date wrong, that his birthday had actually been a week earlier. Oh well, I attribute it to the pandemic timelessness. What day is it? What week is it? Anyway, a few days later, I got a phone call, and we talked, and it was great. Sometimes those reconnections can feel awkward or stilted, and sometimes we just fall back into it, and it's like we were talking yesterday. And that's how it was. So that was a success. Next, environmental wellness. This is one of the ones that surprised me. Expanding beyond our social network, caring for our environment and the natural world. In our personal environment, I guess this would mean cleanliness and perhaps simplicity. And beyond that, how are we expressing care for our larger environment and the natural world? There are a lot of issues related to this, and one that personally resonated with me was the overuse of plastics and all the pollution that results from the overuse of plastics. So for me, the issue became, how can I use less plastic? And I'm working on this. And for me, it relates a lot to the purchasing and storing of food. So for me, it's a matter of, number one, awareness, and number two, changing habits. And a scriptural resource on this topic is from the Hebrew scriptures, Genesis 1:28 in the King James Version. I can't believe I've taken so long in this talk to introduce a scriptural reference. This is after Jehovah has created the world and brings the humans out to name all the animals and to give the humans dominion over the world. And this is what the text says. God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over every living thing. And I think humanity has done a good job of subduing the earth, but sometimes in the modern era, I think humanity has forgotten about replenishing it. Next, intellectual wellness. This is not a problem for me personally, I don't think. Study and learning are kind of my natural inclination. In fact, if anything, I think I have an overindulgence in intellectual stimulation at the cost of emotional and physical regard. Which would lead into emotional wellness, a definite growth area for me. And I had two strands in this area. First, acknowledging and exploring emotions. I tend to be more of a thinker than a feeler. I'm more task-oriented than feeling-oriented. What needs to be done? What's the best way to do it? I think when emotions are seen as negative or uncomfortable or troubling, they may be temporary, but they are valid while they last. Emotions, we know, are not inherent in the situation, but on our reaction to the situation. While we can understand past learnings and triggers and eventually practice letting go, forgiveness, choosing again, and moving on, that's not to deny the reality and power of emotions. And disregarding them or suppressing them is not healthy and doesn't teach us how to deal with them in a constructive way, or how to integrate their power in a complete and more whole version of ourselves. There. Does that sound like over-intellectualizing about emotions? Guilty as charged, yes. So these classes were an emotional growth area for me, as you can imagine, being run by a therapist and a counselor. When penetrating questions were asked, I would often respond with drawings rather than with writings, because for me, there's something very clear and direct about images, like in dreams, where truth is often communicated in images or symbols. So I'm continuing to work on some of the questions and issues raised in those classes. The second strand in emotional wellness for me had to do with emotions regarding divinity. I think we're all familiar with, in the Hindu tradition, the path of bhakti, the path of love and devotion. There are multiple paths to the mountaintop. There's jnana yoga, which is the way of knowledge and study, bhakti, the way of love and devotion, karma, the way of service, hatha, the physical path, and raja, the path of meditation and contemplation. All of the paths meet together at the mountaintop, which is the union of Atman, the individualized soul or spirit, and Brahman, the omnipresent divinity. We know that really the Atman is already one with Brahman. The individual spirit is one with omnipresent divinity, but it's understanding and realizing that is the mountaintop. But to me, the path of bhakti always seemed kind of gentle in a devotional way. It didn't seem to be passionate or romantic or overwhelming. I sort of had a different vision of what I wanted. And then I began to find other models and possibilities for that path. One of them was Rumi, and when his description of divine love is very intoxicating, where he's totally swept away by it. And so I have a couple of quotations from Rumi to demonstrate this approach. I am mastered totally by love. In the hand of love, I am like a cat in a sack. Sometimes love hoists me into the air. Sometimes love flings me into the air. Love swings me round and round his head. I have no peace in this world or any other. The lovers of God have fallen in a furious river. They have surrendered themselves to love's command. And another quotation from Rumi, the beloved has permeated every cell of my body. Of myself, there remains only a name. Everything else is him. And a similar romantic approach to divine love is found in the Song of Solomon in the Hebrew scriptures. And it describes a romance that's highly romantic and sensual. And while it can be taken on a physical level, like with the human lover, it can also be taken on a metaphysical level of being a divine romance with the divine beloved. So here are some passages from the Song of Solomon, again, representing this more romantic type of devotional love. Have you seen my soul's love? I found the beloved of my life. I am my lover's. My lover is mine. I am fainting with love. Let his left hand be under my head and his right hand be clasped within mine. My beloved has brought me to the banqueting house. His banner over me is love. This reminds me of certain other scriptures. For example, from the 10 Commandments, the second commandment, you shall have no other gods before me. Translation, you shall have no other loves before me. You shall have no other thoughts before me. And Jesus said, you shall love the Lord thy God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And seek first the wholeness of God and its harmony, and all these things shall be added to you. This leads to the seventh and final category, spiritual wellness. These categories are not always discretely separated, but often overlap and are intertwined. We know the number one thing for spiritual wellness is regular meditation. And now a personal story from class. One of our assignments was to interview each other, and we had to come up with a spiritual name that characterized us. For instance, a woman that I interviewed said she wanted her spiritual name to be Love. So every time I addressed her during the interview, I called her Love. But I wasn't sure what spiritual name I wanted for myself. So that night, I went to sleep and I had a dream. I dreamed I was at a meditation retreat center for adults. It was quite large and expansive. It even had a little train running around it, like you would find in a children's amusement park. Each person had been given a coat or a jacket by the meditation center that were all alike. But each person's name had been stenciled on the inside of the jacket so they wouldn't get mixed up. I was very curious to know what name was stenciled inside my jacket. So when I opened the jacket to look, the stencil said, Atman, which I was very happy with. So in my interview, the interviewer addressed me as Atman. So I would like to, in thinking about spiritual wellness and what approach to take, I wanted to give a quote from one of the texts that we had in class. It's like a 21st century version of mysticism. So in the book Conscious Living, this is what the author, Gay Hendricks, has to say. Where to place our attention? I choose to make the essence shift, feeling connected to the pure consciousness that flows through everything, the very source from which everything emerges. What I choose to celebrate is the vast space of pure consciousness within ourselves, the vast soul space of essence. And as I honor its serene vastness, it grows ever more immense within and around me, and I resonate in harmony with the wholeness of the universe. Amen. Sign me up. Is this the kingdom of heaven consciousness, which Jesus told us to seek first? So today I'll conclude with these final thoughts. I pay attention when the same things pop up repeatedly. While I was taking these classes, I zoomed a lesson from an Ayurveda doctor who talked about the importance of assuming our internal spiritual viewpoint, known as the observer or the witness. Then Karen Gray spoke one recent Sunday and quoted Emily Cady, practice and realize omnipresence. Eric Butterworth wrote, there is only one thing to learn, to know the knower within. They were all talking about the same thing. Lahiri Mayasaya said, the universe, the devotee's awareness, and the supreme consciousness are perceived as one. Paramahansa Yogananda said, knowing, knower, known as one. And Adi Shankara said, Brahman is supreme. It is beyond the expression of speech, but it is known by the eye of pure illumination. It is pure absolute consciousness, the eternal reality. Such is Brahman, and that you are. Meditate upon this truth. And so it is. Amen. And now we will take a moment to prepare for meditation. As we enter this time of meditation, I invite you to take a comfortable position, relaxed and alert. I invite you to close your eyes and to take a deep cleansing breath and release it. We affirm infinite divine life is always seeking to express as much good as I can accept. I call it forth into unlimited manifestation within me and around me. I direct it into the form and experience of the highest good for all. As we prepare to enter the silence, we affirm these truths. God is all good. I am one with all the goodness of God. I am one with the happiness of a birthday celebration in Des Moines, Iowa. One with the joy of a wedding in Mumbai, India. One with the healing of an illness in Wellington, New Zealand. One with the creation of a poem in Montevideo, Uruguay. I am one with all the goodness of God. I am one with all the good that has ever existed. I am one with all the good that exists now. I am one with all the good that will ever exist. As we emerge now from the silence, we affirm, we are more of Christ, more of Christ, more of Christ, until we are all of Christ, all of Christ, all of Christ. We ascend from contemplating our divine identity to being our divine identity. We are the sacred light. We are the sacred love. We are the sacred fire. We arise, we shine, for the glory of the Lord is arisen upon us. We are awake within divine wholeness. We are awake as the Christ. God consciousness is all there is within these outer human forms. We live as enlightened beings. We are the light of the world. And so it is. Amen.
I'm gonna do a song that's become a jazz standard, and I chose it because there is a very specific phrase at the end that says, "The greatest thing you'll ever learn is how to love and be loved in return. And I do believe that allowing other people to love us is a form of self-care, and learning how to love others is self-care too. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. They said he wandered very far, very far over land and sea, a little shy, and sad of eye, but very wise, very wise was he. And then one day, a very magic day came my way, and as we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing that you'll ever learn, it's just to love and be loved in return. Just to love and be loved in return. Thank you.
Irene, that was beautiful. It was so dreamy. Thank you. And thank you, Caywood, for your very appropriate and useful words about self-care. Would you all join me now in a closing prayer? My mind can go in 1,000 directions. Now I walk in peace. Each step creates a warm breeze. With each step, a lotus blooms. I promise to care for myself, to love myself, as I engage my world. I am worthy, I am deserving, and I will make self-care a priority in the days ahead. Amen.